Yo, what's going on, Serpa Squad? It's been a little while since I picked up the camera and did a video like this, but as you all know, I'm very busy with a lot of stuff right now, and this is the video that seemed like the most sense. Plus, a lot of you wanted to come along for the journey and see sort of how I did all of this. I'll bring you up to speed with all of this at a later time, but we're in the new animal room, that is. Got all framed out, got the rough electric in, doing some other things, but it's going to be well over a month before I get this completed. That said, we got to get the animals moved in and out of my current house because I got to get out of there too. And if we come into what will eventually be my office, sort of hangout space, it's right off of the animal room. As you can see, we're going to put the animals in here for the time being because this room actually is bigger than the current animal room, so that won't be a problem. Anyway, I got the Metaframe aquarium in here already. I did that last night. You'll see also that the current animal room is in complete disarray, and that's because I started dismantling this rack. Now what I did is I just drained the tanks down, moved them to the floor, and then filled them back up. And I'll pretty much repeat that process for all of these other tanks, more or less. We'll have to do some specific things for this one and the 600, but I probably will be showing that in a different video. I actually have to start out here though and catch the fish and dismantle the pond. As the pond began to drain, I removed the net. I should probably also mention that I had to take care of a few things in the garage prior to all of this. I just built this wading pool that will hold the fish momentarily, and I also have this blue one over here for the plants. You'll see though that there are a couple of holes in the bottom, so obviously it's not going to hold water. I'll just patch those up with a little bit of seam tape and it should be good. Anyway, I removed the plant islands and salvaged all the plants I could. I put them on the blue tub I just showed. As you can see, I was stirring everything up as I worked, so I could hardly see the fish until the water got fairly low. I ended up getting into the pond myself to round them up. Catching them all took at least an hour because I wanted to take it slow. I had to make sure that I got every single last fish without hurting any of them in the process. I'm confident that I got them all, and I did it all in batches. So when I had a good amount of fish in the bucket, I moved them over to the pond by hand. It's actually a lot easier than you'd expect, and probably less stress on the fish than the net, to be honest. Plus, it allowed me to get a better look at these beautiful fish. As I said, this is just a little swimming pool, and it's a great option because they're pretty cheap. Got one of the fish down there, and I saw a few over there just not long ago, but it's a great option because this is only a momentary solution. I'm going to move them into something much larger at the current place until we can get them into the pond, but that won't be until the spring. And here we are, completely empty. All the fish are now in the garage, and it's a bittersweet moment because obviously I like this pond. It's sad to see it like that, but you know what? Bigger and better things, so moving on. I'll take it all apart later on because at this point my friend Nate showed up, which meant it was time to begin addressing the animal room. We began with the tanks I showed on the floor earlier. I had him drain them with the shop vac while I swapped it from bucket to bucket. These won't be empty for very long, so we just gave them a good spray down to keep everything hydrated. Then we loaded everything up. I've done this countless times before, and Nate does this for a living, so we were able to make quick work of it all. We hauled the rack into the room, ensured it was level, and moved the tanks over one by one. We got the first round all moved in here, and even just seeing that up on this wall, you can probably get a better perspective as to how much larger this room is than the current one. The following day, I began addressing the next set of small tanks. I netted up the ones in this tank to start. Much like most of the tanks you've seen us move already, I put the majority of these fish into the quarantine area. That way I can move them over at my leisure. From there I moved everything over to the new room. Fast forwarding the next day, and the mock animal room is starting to take shape. You'll see that I moved this rack over as well, and I did that this morning when it was raining, so I didn't really film much of the process. All the fish that I have here are doing quite well though, so I think it's time to move some more things. Okay, back in the animal room, and next up is Samson and Cookie. Before we get started though, I think it's been a little while since I've shown Cookie, and she's grown so much. If you see, she's just about the size of my hand now. Whenever we originally got her, she was super tiny, so it's crazy how in just a few months she's grown this large. To make everything easier and safer for the animals, I gotta pull them out of the enclosures first. Obviously, he is not happy about this. Now with Cookie, she's getting to the size where it's kind of sketchy if I were to get bit by her. So I'm going to use the power of distraction with some zucchini. This is one of her favorites, and I cut them large enough to where she can't just swallow it, so she'll bite onto it, and then I'll grab her. I definitely don't like doing it to her like that, but I really had no option. It's hard to reach into that tank, and that's the safest way for me to do it. So I'm just going to leave her in here for now, and she should be alright. I don't know if she'll eat those zucchini now, though. Moving their 75-gallon tanks and rack was simple enough and not much different than what you've seen already. That said, the plumbing on the back of these is a little more involved, so I had to reconfigure all of that before we could get them set up. The rack itself is also kind of annoying because it has to be slid back into place after doing all of that. Regardless, that all went smoothly, so we filled up the tanks and got the animals. Okay, so after a stressful day, finally ready to put her back. As you see, she's not really too stressed out now, so cool. Let's get her in. He's had enough for one day. Alright, gotta do it just right. Like to grab, once I put him back in his tank, I like to grab him like this so he can't jump off of my hands. See if she'll accept a peace offering. I think she will. At this point, I also decided to pack up the mini cedar pond and the play button paludarium. The pond was easy to do since the plants are in terracotta pots. I simply pulled them out, netted the fish, and moved it over to the new room. It was also crazy because I ended up getting all of the rice fish in a single go. So after 3 days of very hard work, this is what I'm left with. Probably about halfway through all of the animals. I've got both of the nano racks over here, got the cedar pond, the new blackwater setup, and the 75s. Down here in the animal room, I thought I was gonna get sad as things start to lose their form, but honestly, it's kind of a relief. Seeing the animals in the new space, it definitely makes it feel a lot more like home, and this back and forth has just been taking a toll on me. So I think to finally see all of that going on and the satisfaction of seeing this space kind of free up, it makes me feel like I'm that much closer to the goal of just getting in there and starting things fresh. The process of moving the animals thus far has been fairly seamless. Everyone's settling in nicely for the most part. However, we did have 4 casualties, unfortunately. 2 of the black neon tetras in the crystal gems aquarium and 2 of the blue tetras in the new blackwater setup passed. It's pretty unfortunate, but with those nano fish and especially tetras, they're kind of finicky. They don't really like change, so you figure taking them out of there, moving them into one thing, taking the tank over there, and then putting them back, it's a lot of stress for such a little fish. A lot of times they don't take well to it, but everyone else in those tanks appears to be doing quite well now, so fingers crossed we'll be alright. We also unfortunately cracked the front piece of the 150-gallon cube, so it kind of sets me back a little bit further to get that one done, but it's really not that big of a deal. But I'll talk about that more at a later time. As you can see, I'm not even making coherent sentences at this point because I'm so tired, and of course I gotta get up early tomorrow to do some things over there. So I gotta end the video here and finish this one up. So As always, I appreciate you so much for watching. If you want to see how I get the remainder of this stuff into that room and what I'm going to do in the new animal room, be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Leave me a like for my efforts. I definitely appreciate it. And until next time, Serpa Squad, take care and peace.